In today's show, we're going to make a PowerApps tabbed form. So a lot of you have these cases where you have these giant forms you want to fill out, but it's so many lines of information, the user has to scroll and scroll and scroll. And so what we're going to do is instead of making a multi-screen form, we're going to make a tabbed form. So you're just going to have one page, but there are going to be different tabs for different sections of information, hopefully making a better user experience for your users. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. In today's show, we're going to build you a PowerApps tabbed form. And this is one of those things that comes up a lot, whether you're coming from InfoPath or you're working with SharePoint lists or any of those type of scenarios. What I see with people is like, hey, I like to use form controls, right? I get it. They make a lot of things easier. But my list or table or data source has 212 fields, and making the user scroll to the bottom is really a bad idea. Right? And I will tell you personally, when I build apps, I never require the user to scroll, right? Scrolling in galleries is one thing, but I never make them scroll to the bottom of the page to fill out a form or to read more information. I try to get everything onto one screen. And so as part of that experience, I've gotten a lot of questions around how could I do a tabbed interface for my forms? So I set out to solve this, and I don't know, I did it a couple different ways. And so in today's video, we're going to talk about just keeping it all on one screen, one form, but we're going to use tabs to kind of jump between the different fields your user fills out. So it should feel really nice to them. All right, so that's enough blathering. Let's switch over to my desktop. Let's demo what I've built and then talk about how to build it. Over here on my desktop, you can see this is what we see a lot of from people, right? Over here on the left, I've got just a normal gallery. This is browsing a bunch of items in a list. And then over here on the right is one form. And it's, you know, you got to scroll down to the bottom to get to it. This one actually isn't too bad because it only has a few fields, but you can see it kind of, it does a little this, a little that. It's not ideal. So if we jump over to the next screen, instead of getting it all on this one, let's go over here and let's look at a different way of doing this. So in this one, if I choose Chewy down here, and we'll click on our friend Chewy. So here you can see that I've broken up the form in a different section. So this one is information. So his first name, his last name, how old he is, picture of his face. There's the job tab. So it's got department, title, his hire dates, and then a notes tab where we kind of have the additional information. So this gives us a nice single experience as a user. I can kind of progress through here. And then up here on the top, I can hit the save button and it'll save it. All right, I've got a new button. Because it all works the way you want. Because in reality, this is just one form that I've went and we are hiding or showing the different fields or different cards that they need to input based on which tab we're on. So I thought this was a great jumping off point. You also probably can make fun of my design skills. This is pretty for me, but I realize you guys can make these look a lot nicer. And I didn't take the time to get rid of all the blues. What do you do? I can only do so much, right? But I want to kind of show you guys what this does, how it works. And then hopefully you can kind of plant the seeds for you guys. As we go through this though, if you're like, oh, that's great and all, but I really would like to see this on completely separate screens, that is a different concept, right? To do it on different screens, we have to kind of account for where we're at in the process a little differently. So if you want to see that, leave me comments below and say, hey, it'd be nice to see the different screen version of that, right? The multi-screen. But today, one screen, one form, just showing and hiding stuff. So hopefully plant some seeds of ideas for you guys. All right, so that's the demo. Let's jump back over here and let's just take a look at how I did this. So all on one screen, nothing new here, right? This is just a normal gallery pulling from my employees data source. And then this is a normal form that is, you know, using gallery one selected. Boom. I didn't even bother putting a save button on here, but this is just a normal gallery form scenario. Okay. Hit the Alt button or the change screens. So I did, you'll notice, because it'll come up in a little bit, we're going to use some variables. And so when I go to the next screen, I reset the variables. So that's here. And then we navigate. So we land over here. So what we have, this is the same exact gallery. It's just hooked up to the items, the employees data source. And then over here, I've got these buttons, these tabs. And so what I wanted to do was I didn't want to show any of them. I didn't want to show any data until you had chosen a record. So to do that, I said, all right, when they select one of these records, so whoever's record they select, we're going to set the var tab variable to info. Because this var tab variable, this is what's going to really drive a lot of our behaviors here. We're just going to keep putting different values in that, and that's what determines what shows up over on the right. So, for example, if I click on, so if I hold down the Alt key and I click on Greg, you can see it takes us to Greg's record. And so, this tab turned to white, telling us that we're on the info tab. We've got the different fields showing up. But really, from a PowerApps point of view, let's kind of show you guys. So the gallery is not a big deal. But from a PowerApps point of view, this is all, oh my goodness, so much scrolling. This is all just one form. So, right, so first name, last name, face, age, right, it's all form 1_1. And if I hold down the Alt key and click on job, then that is going to say still in form 1_1, and then that just shows us different cards for department, hire date, and title. So the way that that works, if you look at the job button, right, because it's really just a button, it just looks a little different. But so the job button here, the on select event for that is to set var tab equal to job. So it just changes that variable to var tab equals job. And then what I've done is you can see that this card is set, its visible is set to button 1_1 display mode equals disabled. All right, well, let's backtrack a little bit then. So let's go back to button 1_1, which is the job button, right? We can rename this to make this easier. So job button. Boom. So there's a job button. So if we look at the display mode for this, all it says is if var tab, so if our variable is job, then disable this button, right? Because we're already on the job tab, so we want to disable it. And one of the things we're taking advantage of with buttons is they have different colors, or they have the ability to have different colors when they're disabled versus enabled. So we're taking advantage of them being disabled to get this white color, whereas when the buttons are enabled, they're the nice purple color. And that's making them blend in or show up. Okay? But so we're setting the display mode based on the variable. And then everything else on my screen is just derived from what is the display mode of this, right? I could have set them all to be, derived from the variables properties. I could have tracked a different thing. It doesn't really matter. I just needed a way to distinguish. And so for me, I wanted to have all the logic, right? Because really now all the logic is in one place. This button's display mode drives the entire rest of the behavior. So if I change the way that this gets derived, then a whole bunch of other things cascade down. That's really the key though, when you're building these, is you don't want to have your logic in the same logic in 7 places. Put the logic in one place that makes sense to you, and then cascade or use, reference that particular location for all your other controls. So if your logic changes, you need to add an and in there, or you want to change job to jobs or something like that, then you can go and modify just that logic in one place, and everything else just references that, and so they'll just follow along. It's really one of those tricks that helps you make better Power Apps from the standpoint it's a lot easier for you to maintain if you do that. Okay, so right, and if we go to notes, you can see over here that the notes, it just sets it to that, right? So we do that, boom, we're getting the same type of thing. And then all of these controls, like I said before, this one is just tied to button 1_2, which, because I did a terrible job of pre-naming this, right? So I would just change this to be the notes button. Right, and then this is where we love Power Apps, because now if I click on this, it says notes button display mode equals disabled. That reads a lot better. And that's another little side note for you guys. When I name stuff, I only name things that that I reference. I know you're supposed to rename all your controls. I'm lazy, I'll be honest. So I just name the things that I reference. In this case, I want to reference the notes button, so then that's what I'll rename. All right, so let's switch over and set this up. We'll start by making a new screen, so new, blank, and we're going to throw our gallery on here. So gallery, vertical, select a data source, an employees list. All right, easy enough, boom. So then what I did was I inserted a form. So we'll throw an edit form over here. We'll kind of drag it off to this side, doom. And we'll select the data source for that to also be employees. Nice thing about my SharePoint data source is it guesses the columns that I want to see, and it does a good enough job that we'll let it pass for now. And so then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to set the item to be, what is the name of my gallery? So my gallery is gallery 2. We'll call it people gallery. I don't know. I probably should call it employee gallery, but right, I'm trying to do a better job of naming stuff. So we'll click on our form. The item will be people gallery dot selected. Boom. Okay. Yay. So then now what we need to do is we need to create those buttons in order to kind of start to facilitate, right? Because reality is that my fancy little tabs over there, they were just buttons that I just went and, made look pretty. So we'll say button. Oh, one more. We're going to drag these over here like so. Okay, so there's my 3 buttons. And then we'll just kind of set this one to be info. Boom. And then we'll set this one to be, I think it was job and notes. Boom. All right, so 3 buttons. Now, one of the tricks I will tell you guys when you're doing this, because you'll be more concerned about what it looks like the second time through, is get all the branding, all the colors, the different property colors, get all that set on the first button and then copy them. But I'm not going to overdo that, so I wasn't too worried about that here. I'm also going to then throw a little background on here. So we'll grab a rectangle. There it is. And so we'll throw the rectangle, something like this and like this. Kind of pull it down a little bit. And then what you'll do is you'll just send that rectangle to the back. So click on the little button down here, reorder, send to back. So that starts to get a little bit of that. I'm going to grab the rectangle, make it a little bit bigger. This is where I ended up when I did this, I made that pretty one on the other screen. I ended up spending a lot of time kind of fiddling with exactly where this goes. Because it turns out, right, that I couldn't get the mouse to do this. So I'm like, height, all right, I really need you to be 27. There you go. So that feels a little better. So I don't know, I kind of kept dancing around with them. Okay. So then what we want to do is we're going to say, all right, when you set this, when you click on this button, I want to set a variable. We're going to call it var video. So var video. And what are we going to do? We're going to set that to be info, right? So make it nice and easy, like so. And so if var video is info, then we want to hide, or we want to change this button to be disabled. So then we will say, for the same button, we're going to say display mode is, we're going to do an if. And so if var video, oh, I got to do a comma there. So if var video equals info, then display mode, I hate that disabled is not in this dropdown. Display mode is disabled. And if not, display mode is going to be edit, like that. So that should work. So then now if we hold down the Alt key so we can press the button, it will set the variable. And you can see that that now changes colors, right? So now it's this grayed out looking button. And so remember with your button, if we click on it, there are the different settings. So we have disabled border color, and disabled fill. So that's how you manipulate what you want to see, right? So for example, I want my disabled fill, I don't want it to be whatever weird color that is. I want it to be plain white because my background is white. So then that kind of makes it blend in a little better. I also then figured out that I didn't like the border thickness on these. I ended up changing border thickness from 2 to 1. I don't know why, but I ended up feeling like that looked better. And so you can kind of work through visually how you want this to look disabled versus enabled so you can drive and build that experience that you want. Also, you notice down here at the bottom, it gets real weird to make it line up just the way you want. So what I ended up having to do was I ended up taking and I put a rectangle. I didn't even show you this on the other screen. I should have. But I'm going to grab another rectangle. Where are you, rectangles? Why can't you be at the top? I use you the most. I'm going to put this rectangle about right here. Something like, this is where it starts to drive you bonkers. We'll pull it over there and we'll pull this up. And so when I do that, it kind of fits a little better. And so we'll zoom in. And so you can see it's not quite covering it. So we'll kind of pull it over this way a little bit. But I actually want to make the fill for the rectangle white also. So white, and then that's where I figured out that my rectangle is currently too big. So I got to click on the exact rectangle Right, this is not the stuff you're used to seeing me do. I apologize, but necessary evils here. And so that's almost right. And then I'll take the width and I'm going to reduce the width by 1. Oh, not that though. 159, like so. And so then that, when we zoom back out to normal size, that looks like a nice little setup, right? So with a little bit of wiggle and waggle, you can make these tabs kind of flow down and look the way that you want them to. I also figured out that little weird blue icon or little blueness you're seeing, so I just ended up pulling this down under it. And so then that gave me the nice clean tab look that I was looking for. And if I click on, well, nothing for job now, but so if we take job and we say, hey, you need the same logic, so set var video to job. And so then now if I click on that, then our info button comes back, but it's got that white thing underneath it still. And so I set the white rectangle. Your visible, where's your visible property? There it is. So I want your visible property. Remember I talked about we put all the logic in the button. So then his visible property is just going to be based on if that button's disabled. So if the button's disabled, I need this guy to be visible. So we're going to say button 2. Nope, that's not button 2. So we're going to do the responsible thing first. Whoop. Button info, like that. We're going to say, all right, so rectangle. Your visible is going to be button info dot display mode equals display mode dot disabled. There we go. So if that's working right, then if we click on job, we don't see the white. If we click on that, we see our little tab. Back over here, we don't, right? So that gives you that kind of flipping back and forth. And remember, the weird concept to some of you might be this idea that I am the display mode. That's all my logic, right? The display mode of this button is where I chose to put my logic. And so then that logic is what cascades through the rest of the app. Okay? Because what I'm going to do now that we kind of understand that, we're going to go down to our form. And so on this particular one, I want first name, last name, face. I don't know, that's enough, right? So first name, last name, and face to show up when you're on the info tab. Okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the first name, and I'm going to set its visible, right? Its visible is true by default. We're going to use our same formula again. We're going to say, what was the name of our button? Button info dot display mode equals display mode dot disabled. And then now I'm going to just copy that so I can use it a whole bunch. So then now I'll click on the name for last name, or the card for last name. I'll say, all right, last name, your setting is that same thing. And then the face card, your visible is also the same thing. Okay, so that is how you walk through that particular logic. And so what we need to do is we need to set the other buttons to be the same. So I'm going to rename this button. So this will be button job, like that. And then this will be button notes, like so. So title is part of job, so visible. We'll go over here. We will paste this in, but instead of using button info to decide whether or not it shows up, this one's going to be button job. And then let's see, favorite color, that can be on the notes field. So we'll say, we'll go to that one, we'll say visible here. And so then button dot notes, like so. Department, that's part of job. So visible for that one. Button dot job, like so. All right. So hopefully that kind of gives you the idea, right? I don't know. I feel like we've done too many. So what we're going to do now, because I'm fancy is we're just going to get rid of the rest of them. So the rest of you will just be invisible permanently, right? You would go through and set that same formula for all of these, but you guys do not want to watch me type in that formula 412 times, I don't think. So we're just going to hide the rest of these. But what should now happen is if I click on info, there's first name, last name. If I click on job, well, nothing, right? Why? Because we haven't went in and configured the display mode for job. So we're going to say, all right, job, your display mode is going to be if var video equals job, then your display mode is disabled. And if it's not, your display mode is edit. Now, notice here we have to use an if, right? Why do we have to use an if? Notice those other fields also showed up when I was yakking. But we have to use an if here because we need to have two different values, right? So if this equates to true, I want disabled. If this equates to false, I want it to be edit. But when we were setting the property of this card, we didn't have to use an if because button job display mode equals disabled, it always is either true or false. And visible for card is either true or false. So once you kind of wrap your head around this idea that true or false, you can just get to that with an equal. Any of these fields where you want to set a true or false value, you should never have to use if. You should just have to do something like I'm showing you here. So just one of those little tricks, once again, to make your life a little easier. A little less code right. All right, but so then now you can see if I click on info, we get those three. If you click on job, you get those two. And so then we would just apply the same logic to notes. So we'd just say, hey, notes, your display mode is what? Is just going to be if, what is this? Button notes. If button notes equals, button notes. No. Guys, you can't let me make mistakes like that. If var video equals notes, boom, then display mode dot disabled or disable, boom, like so. And so then once again, now if we click on notes, oh, what else we didn't do? We didn't set the on select. All right, and these are good for you guys to see because you guys will message me and say, hey, why isn't mine working? And these are the type of things we're going to go and double check and make sure that you got all of these, right? So what does this need to be? This needs to be set var video, and we want to set it to notes. Notes. All right, so the notes, now that one's disabled. Boom, boom. We've now got a fancy tab interface. Now, what about saving? There's nothing special about saving, right? Insert an icon because we really just have one form. So when you click on the save button, all you have to do is submit form, and then our form name is form 2. Very nice name, Shane. Boom. We are now submitting. If you wanted to have a new icon, same thing, right? This is where you guys just need to understand your form modes. And I have a video on form modes if any of this is new to you. But this would just be new form, form 2. The only thing you might need to watch out for in these tabbed interfaces is if you have required fields, you want to make sure the user is filling that out. So make sure you're enforcing that. And also remember, you can put a bunch of extra logic in here. You can take concepts we've learned in other videos, like if they try to navigate away, you want to do a pop-up and say, hey, you have unsaved changes. Do you want to have those? Right? There's a video on that. Or you could have a button that says, do you really want to submit? You have all those capabilities through the pop-ups you've learned and the different conditional statements that we've done in other videos. So don't, remember, that's really the joy here. We try and make these little compartmentalized solutions so you can take and apply them and have as many videos or, build on all those concepts into one master solution. But that's really it, right? This gets you guys a tabbed interface. It's really ugly, but I always make ugly. I'm certain you'll make prettier. If you make something really nice and pretty, send me an email with a screenshot. Shane@PowerApps911. I love to see those. Also, if this is the type of stuff you're into, right, you really probably would enjoy my PowerApps class. So I've got another offering here coming up soon. We run them about once a month, once every 6 weeks. But the end of February one, it'll be here before you know it. So sign up today. We got a few seats left, so get in there. And if you mention this video in the comments when you register, you can have 10% off. Shh. Well, no, it's not a secret. Tell the world. I don't care. But yeah, just another way to say thank you guys. So, and also a final reminder, if you need anything else, right, you can leave me comments. I respond to all my comments. Sometimes it takes a couple days, but I respond to all of them. You can email me. You can tweet me. You can fill out the contact form on PowerApps 911. That's where this came from, right? We've had like 17 people in the contact form ask us how to do this type of concept. So decided to make a video. That's all I got. So thanks and have a great day. Hey, it's me again. If you got a second, click the subscribe button. That always keeps me making more videos. Or if you want to work together, need some help getting your PowerApps going, hit me up at PowerApps 911. Always happy to work together. Or finally, if you're really just looking for more videos, that's probably what it is. Check out the PowerApps playlist over here and, enjoy that. All right, thanks and have a great day.